TG Geeks, episode 96, September 19th, 2016. It gets even more horrible. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the Two Gay Geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery. Sci-fi, comics, film, horror, genre, you name it, we talk about it. I'm Keith Lane and we're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely, getting cooler, Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, dadgummit, you stole my line.
Of course.
And this is Ben Raggington.
I can read your mind.
Yes,
I'm
you
psycho.
Can. Yeah, you're psycho. Yeah. And this is Ben Raggington, also coming to you from, and it's only 101 degrees. Therefore, it is autumn, Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, and it took it till 250 to get it to 101 today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have an interview with some great friends, and we talk about horrible imaginings as well as some projects that they have coming up. Neal and Jana Hallford. So we're going to launch right into that. Yeah, it'd be nice if I had the right sound in there, right? So here we go. And this time we have some returning guests. We have Neal and Jana Hallford from Swords and Circuitry Studios.
How do you spell circustry?
Circustry, yes. Maybe it is circustry sometimes, huh? Anyway, well, welcome, Neal and Jana. Welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, so we kind of wanted to talk to you again because we talked to you a year ago, and you were the ones that introduced us to Mr. Miguel Rodriguez of Horrible Imaginings Film Festival in San Diego, and we thought it was appropriate to have you back on the show after a year of us doing films and
Our thing
and branching out to not only independent filmmakers but independent creators. And you have some new things going on, and we want to talk about Horrible Imaginings as well as those new things. So what did you think of the film festival, what you got to see?
I know at least for my own part, I really enjoyed it. It was really exciting to see. First of all, of course, the festival has expanded quite a bit. Of course, Jana and I have a history with the convention with the film festival, because whenever we released Case of Evil, it premiered at Horrible Imaginings at the end of 2014. But even going back a couple of years before that, I was actually working on a project for a friend of mine who had a project premiere at Horrible. So we have a long association with the festival. But it's been really exciting to see everything that Miguel has done with the festival and how much it's grown just in the past few years.
Yeah, just from last year when we went
good heavens.
to this year, it was unbelievable how it has grown.
I mean, just 2 full days and 1 night of last year to 3 nights and 2 days. It's more horror films than I could ever imagine. And to be honest, more horror films than I actually care to see in one time. Not to knock the festival, but Keith and I were there for all 75 films.
Every single one of them.
That's a lot. I enjoyed the variety and how international the festival has become. I mean, it always seems to have had that element, but there seems to be participation from all over and from all kinds of people, and of course that's wonderful to see. There were some great blocks on Saturday, and I especially enjoyed pieces that had some humor and or beautiful camera work. So there was some wonderful content in there too.
Yeah, just from Sweden to Slovenia to Japan to I think we had
France.
Was it Australia?
We had Australia.
Yeah.
It really was just unbelievably international.
Yeah, it's a great festival, and I'm hoping that it continues to grow and becomes more of an international film festival as well.
I remember Miguel last year when we talked to him. I mean, that was the first time where it really began to explode, where instead of him having to actually go out and solicit independent filmmakers to submit their work, they were bombarding him to where he had to actually start saying, okay, you're in, but you're not. You know, that was the first time he's ever had to do that, if I remember right. And that really says a lot about the festival itself and what it must stand for in as far as horror independent films go.
Yeah, well, one of the things that was kind of fun hearing someone make the comment whenever they were having the different filmmakers and directors come up and speak. One of the director says this is becoming the con of horror film festivals, and I have to agree because Miguel and of course it's not just Miguel. He has an awesome panel of folks. There's Beth Accomando, who's wonderful and very important to the film community here, and also too she is a film reviewer for KPBS, and so she's also helps get the word out through more mainstream kind of channels as well. But I'm just really impressed with everything they've done, and the cool thing that he started to do this year, and I think is his plan to continue to develop in years coming, is that he had a panel of horror book authors that were there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's had in the past several years, he's also had people doing dance and sort of performance art related things that are horror related. And so I think he's taking it from beyond being just a film festival into something that's probably a little more similar to like the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival that is very broad, and they have book authors and they have film people and they have other things going on. And so it's really exciting to see what Miguel is doing down here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where they can take it in the years to come. I did want to kind of point out, you were talking about the international aspect of everything too, because I believe you may have interviewed or will be interviewing Eric Elick, who is a fellow that we got to know whenever Case of Evil premiered, and really super nice guy. And he was on one or two of the films this year, and I think he's been in the past 2 years, he's had at least one film that he did the score for as well.
Right.
And really, really great guy, super talented. And I have to say I had a personal favorite that I was rooting for this year, which was the Legends of Japan, I think is what it's called.
Right.
And so I'm really looking to hoping that Pablo Absentia, I think is her last name.
Absento.
Really looking forward to seeing if she can get that launched and going. So
yeah, we did
something
talk.
that really struck me about all this too is that something that Neal and I have talked about over time is how in a lot of local film festivals you are basically preaching to the choir. Most of the people attending are from the film community, and I'm seeing more word get out and more people come that are maybe just fans. And I think podcasts such as this one are extremely important about getting the word out, and also letting film buffs who weren't able to go to the festival know what some of the highlights were, etc. So, because obviously getting the word out is a big issue for independent filmmakers.
Yeah.
It's something that is a problem most have to solve.
Yeah, we certainly talked about the highlights and the lowlights. You guys didn't stay for the Greasy Strangler.
Oh, dear.
My God, you should have. Oh my God.
The very final movie.
What a crazy thing. Yeah.
That's not a film, it's an experience.
It's an experience, yes. A bad experience at that.
A greasy experience.
Yeah. So this film festival really is absolutely incredible. I'm so glad that we became attached to it and were able to have you attached as well. I mean, it was really just an experience. Ever out of 1,300 films, he picked 75
yeah.
that we watched, and they were all great quality. It was just the talent in the independent filmmaking community is just unbelievable.
Oh.
As are you, the two of you with your film that launched our foray into
horror,
horror
and independent films.
Independent films.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Well, it is really. I'm going to keep on, talking about Miguel's stuff here just for a moment, just because since Jana and I started attending film festivals, it really runs the gamut of what is available out there, and Miguel's festival is pretty solid. We've been to some other film festivals where Jana and I would seriously be sitting in seats looking at each other going, okay, who did they have to bribe in order to get into this film festival? And so occasionally there'll be films that come up at the Miguel's Festival as in other festivals where you go, it may not be quite your taste of things, but generally speaking, the quality is still, is very good. It's just, a difference of whether you like a particular story or a particular style or what have you. But pretty much across the board, the stuff that Horrible features is top quality stuff, and I think that's going to be one of the reasons they continue to grow. It's not this schlock that you're getting to see.
Yeah, he has a pretty good stable of people that look at the films and then they kind of decide in mass, if you will, of which films they're going to have. And Miguel is a wonderful film historian, as well as his knowledge of film and filmmaking and what kind of is good for the audience is really helpful in that realm, shall we say.
It was really exciting last year because he actually was on TCM, and they had him come on and introduce, be a guest programmer or sort of, I don't remember what they called it, but a guest commentator or something on, I think the film that they ran was the movie that, I think The Thing That Came from Outer Space, which of course obviously is the first film iteration of The Thing. With James Arnett's basically being a living carrot.
Yeah.
Right.
So of course we're huge fans of TCM. TCM pretty much runs at our house. If it's either the news or TCM or whichever my sci-fi weirdo shows I've got videotaped.
Exactly. Videotaped?
What?
Videotaped?
Okay, videotaped. Okay, yes, I'm showing my age. It's on the DVR or what have you.
I make that mistake too. I've said that occasionally myself, and it's like,
well,
where did that
even when we talk about our quote-unquote film, okay, well, film never touched at the beginning, middle, or end.
Exactly.
It was on video, but I think whenever I hear video, I still tend to think of video as like a music video. When I hear the word video, it's a video.
Exactly.
Film has come to mean more than just the original medium.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah, it's actually there's a differentiation between film and movie.
Yeah, you almost have to say analog at this point.
No, but I think film also now, and without sounding snobbish, film now begins to, it has an implication that there's an artistic level to it that maybe just a commercial movie does not.
Right.
Well, it's like whenever you go into the bookstore and they used to have literature and fiction. And so it basically implies one is not the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fiction is Star Wars. Literature is like Les Miserables.
Yeah.
Reminds me of teachers that would have dismissed certain things as trash, but...
Exactly, yeah. So go ahead.
Yes?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm hearing two people at the same time say, go ahead.
So we're going to turn into Chip and Dale. No, after you.
No, after you. After you. No, after you.
No, I totally forgot what I was going to say, so why don't you go ahead and...
I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, bloody hell.
Oh, well.
Okay, so let me throw this out then. With what you saw at the festival, I'm just curious, because Keith and I already did our own little wrap-up of some of the things that really stood out for us. Were there any things that stood out for you? Any short films or feature-length that you thought, wow, that was really amazing?
Honestly, the the standout for us was the one that the two of you sponsored, which was Elena.
Depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah. Elena.
The director calls it Eliana. The producer calls it Elena.
Yes. And so, however you want to pronounce it, that was the standout that I walked away from me because, everyone, the different films you have all the different flavors of horror out there. You got straight up sort of literary horror, you have gothic, you have supernatural, you have, sort of, torture porn, you have splatterpunk, you've got all this other different stuff that's out there. But the stuff that I tend to gravitate towards are things that are more in the vein of what Aliena was, which is basically it has a very different rounded thing. It doesn't pick one emotion and just do horror. It takes you through the whole thing. I think that's what makes a horror all the more horrifying, is because it has this sentimental sort of the sentiment to it about it. There's a love story in it, and I think that's what makes when the horrifying things happen in the story, it makes them all the more horrifying. Because it's not like one note that you're just hitting over and over and over on a piano.
Right.
It was a beautifully shot film too. Goodness, the cinematography was beautiful on that.
Oh yes.
And also, I liked the complexity of the story. That there's the horror in the sense of something supernatural happening, but there's also the real life horror of bullying, and enough complexity like the character of Lolo that is kind of caught in the middle, that seems to be put in a position of you better be a bully or you will be bullied.
Right.
And, just a lot of things that I think a lot of us, even if it's been a while since we were in school, we can relate to. So I liked the story and the complexity of it, how, and goodness, it was beautiful, such beautiful photography. And the acting good so that it wasn't a distraction. Sometimes acting can be a distraction if people aren't really good at it.
Right.
And they did a good job. So that whole block that it was in, the whole LGBT block, I thought was great. Although Neal and I couldn't help having a conversation after Zerk that, basically we have this mutual pact that if one of us tells the other one that we're dying and we need to be done in, we want a little more information before we proceed.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And
I have a Lovecraftian beast that lives inside of me.
Yeah.
And I liked the pieces, but I had not honestly seen a musical horror for a while, so that was kind of fun to see with Bionic Girl. And
that was really refreshing.
Yeah.
And Beyond the Gates, although the pacing was a little hard for me in places, I really thought they did a very good job of making it look like a video game had appeared in the basement, and I liked that.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
It reminded me a great deal of the movie House.
Yes.
Yes.
Which whenever we were at the festival, no one specifically referenced, but I just kept on going and said, wow, this really reminds me of House a lot.
We'll have to ask Jackson about that because we're going to talk to him tomorrow. So the director of Beyond the Gates.
I agree with Jana. I think the beginning was a little slow, but once you got to the middle or ending, I really enjoyed where they went with things.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was a great watch.
Mm-hmm. And for a tribute to the kind of vintage made-for-TV movies some of us remember, some of us that are vintage remember.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that, and I think that what they did with that was very true to the style of the older made-for-TV movies.
Oh, it really was. I hadn't thought of that. It certainly was. So, what did you think of Black Bear?
Oh, I loved it. Because it's just like my two favorite movies during the festival were right back to back.
Yeah.
But Black Bear was hysterical. I almost died from that movie.
As Ben said, if Monty Python had done a PSA on bears,
that would have been it.
Yeah, I adored that movie. I'd like to shake the hands if we ever did that one.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
So you have some new projects coming up. Do you have a film project or what kind of project? Tell us what you've got going.
We have a couple things we're working on. First thing, since I know that this wasn't true the last time we talked. First of all, just letting everybody know that The Case of Evil is now on Amazon.
Yay!
Yes.
And so if you have Amazon Prime, you can play it for free. And if you don't have Amazon Prime, then you can either rent it or you can buy a permanent copy and watch it forever. So if you just look for The Case of Evil on Amazon's video streaming services, you can watch The Case of Evil.
And it is well worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
It is a great film.
Well, thank you so much.
I mean, not just in terms of story, but in terms of film technique.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Brilliant. It's really great to watch.
Well, thank you. I think that one of the things that was the most gratifying about it was that how we almost treated it like it was a 48-hour film festival kind of thing in terms of the way we shot it and we approached it, because we shot it for Horrible. And so the fact that it turned out as well as it did, it still kind of astonishes me. But I'm very happy with it, and mostly I'm really gratified by how much how much love and appreciation we've gotten from people about it. And so by the end of its festival run last year, we went to 39 film festivals and won 6 awards with it. So
cool.
Nice.
For a first-time short, that's not too bad.
Yeah, exactly.
And we can kind of tell who the classic horror film fans are by who likes it, I think. But so a radio drama series that we're getting ready to do will start with something that is kind of in the spirit of that a little bit, in that it's based on something Neal had written back in his student days that has a somewhat similar kind of jazz horror theme, jazz in this case theme. So you can kind of see where some of this all ties in. And anyway, that should be fun. We're starting to get auditions, audio auditions for our first radio drama that we're going to do. And it's kind of interesting, too, seeing Neal look at some of the stuff that he worked on years ago as a student, because, Neal, didn't I say it's like you're collaborating with your,
Oh yeah.
yourself?
Oh yeah. It's kind of funny because there's a little bit of a story behind all of this. Is that so? Whenever I was just a few days out of high school, I got a job at a little local radio station called KTOW, which was in Sand Springs, which is a suburb of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so most of the people who were disc jockeys at the station were, for the most part, kids. And I think, honestly, the guy who owned the radio station really was just using it as a tax shelter. I don't think
Probably.
he actually wanted to make money.
Yeah.
And so, but the beautiful thing is that there were a lot of us young folks running around, and we were the DJs in the station. We cut commercials, and we did all this other stuff. And so during the part of this, I had access to this production studio. And my buddy and I kept thinking, well, we've got the studio, we've got to do something with it. And so we started kicking around the idea, said, hey, wouldn't it be fun to do a radio drama along the lines of War of the Worlds? And so do our modern kind of take on it or whatever. So we kicked around ideas, and we didn't want to just do War of the Worlds because, first of all, we weren't really sure what the legality would be around doing something like that. But we said, well, there's a local legend here in town called the Bulldog Man. And so let's do a story about the Bulldog Man, but we'll treat it sort of like a 2020 report with people talking about this legend and then kind of laughing about, oh, haha, here's this silly old stupid legend. But you find out at the end of the broadcast that he's real, and he comes in and he kills the people who are running the broadcast.
Oh, wow, what a twist.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so we actually, what we did at the very end of the program is we ended the program, we ran credits for the show, and then we actually had one of the DJs go in and start his set that was supposed to come on immediately after. So he's on for a couple minutes after technically the show is over, and then while he's talking, you hear the sound of breaking glass. He starts screaming about, hey, what are you doing in here? And then we shut off the transmitter for 15 minutes.
Oh, my God.
Oh, that's chilling.
I mean, so not only was no one there was nothing but static on the channel.
Wow. That's diabolical. That's right up there with Orson Welles.
And I probably also would have lost my SCFU license without it.
Exactly.
Possibly, yeah, but
if
man.
if enough people were paying attention.
Yes.
Yeah.
But but like I said, we had one or two people actually call in to find out if we were okay.
Oh my.
But it was a great experience. But the fun aspect of that is we said, hey, well, that was a lot of fun. Let's try to let's keep on trying to make these. And so periodically, one of my buddy Ron Bollinger or I would come up with an idea and say, hey, we got an idea, so let's do another one. So we did that on Halloween night. So we decided that we were going to do the next one for Christmas. And so we aired one by my friend called Silent Night. And then I got this crazy idea. I said, let's do a whole series, and let's treat them like, let's be Twilight Zone on the radio. So
interesting.
After mulling ideas around, we got Uncharted Regions. And so we ran a series of, I can't even remember how many episodes it was, but it wasn't very many. Because it wasn't on a regular schedule. It was basically whenever we had time and we had effort, because we had no budget. And the original actors were friends of mine. So I said, okay, we got a script. And keep in mind, I'm right out of high school when we're doing these.
Right.
And we run these for the next 2 or 3 years on and off. Anyway, so that was sort of my first stab at doing kind of programs or fiction kind of in a film. It's not filmed, but in a produced sort of way. And that was really important because those scripts later helped me get into my day job, which is the computer gaming industry, because I sent them my radio drama scripts. So lo and behold, we come back to the end of last year, and we were starting to talk about, well, we've done the short film, we want to do a feature, and we've been Jana and I have been discussing what kind of feature we want to make next. And we're going, yeah, but we don't have any budget, and we want to make a feature next time. And so we said, well, in the meantime, we still want to do something. So what can we do? And I said, well, let's go back to do radio dramas. So I had actually a few scripts that had been written for the original show that I went back and I picked up and said, hey, let's start with these, and then I'm going to start inviting friends of mine in to write or to write for the show, and then we'll actually get a real cast for these times. So you won't hear any acting from me in the series, I promise.
Well, the interesting thing that you can do with that, I mean, you can release those on your website, or you can even do them on YouTube and do a slideshow.
No.
If you can get an artist that would do something like that,
Because I did these when I was 17 years old.
I mean the what you're doing currently.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Well, the current one, the hope is, now who knows whether this will actually happen or not, but the hope is that we can go find, NPR, PRI, or any of the public radio networks, and we find somebody said, look, we will sell these to you for a song. We just want to get on the air.
Right.
And so, failing that, I have several people who have internet radio stations who've already hopped up and said, we want to be on your, we would love to have you on our network.
Oh, cool.
Just based on things I've already told them about stuff. So,
well, that's a cool deal.
If we get that, we know that that these people are also on iHeartRadio, and so we get distribution that way.
Oh, cool.
And it is interesting, thinking a little differently for audio because, one of the reasons that we don't do the 48-hour film festival is because we would need more than 48 hours just for post-production. So
right.
When Neal was painstakingly going over the audio for The Case of Evil, making sure that the usual stuff you would do after a film, but then also then making it sound period. Because he's very, very sensitive. He's very aware of how to match with the audio with the older films. as well as the visuals. But when he was going over the audio very carefully, I kept hearing it, in the other room and thinking, wow, this actually would work very well as a radio drama. And it makes me look at things I've written and thought, well, that won't work because there's a lot of sign language going on. And so,
right.
It's interesting to try to think of, going from painting a visual picture to doing that, but with ways that people can just pick it all up from the audio. So it is an interesting way to have to think.
She has a couple of short stories that she actually showed me whenever we first got married that I really want to go back and revisit and see if we can adapt them as stories. So this one won't just be me dragging up old stuff. And also, I'm also writing a brand new episode right now that it's another sort of an idea that's been sitting in the back of my head for a number of years. But the fun part with this is that there, like I said, those couple of scripts that I had sitting around for a long time that I went back and said, okay, well, this doesn't work now because this was kind of written topical for 1984. And so I'm having to go back and rewrite some of those episodes. But and now I think they're much stronger episodes overall anyway, because I think I was still kind of getting a feel for how you tell a story.
Right.
If you've improved over time, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then with this, you could even be up for a Parsec Award at some point,
dear.
because they do audio dramas and short form and long form.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, my goal is, and of course this is my lofty ambition is that a lot of the inspiration for the series we had done back in the 80s was a radio drama series called Bradbury 13.
Oh, I'm familiar with that.
What?
I've heard of that.
Yeah, if you go on to YouTube, they have pretty much the whole series. Now, somebody else absconded with them, so basically they've got like a 5-minute trailer of promoting this dude that has nothing at all to do with the things. But if you wait past that, they have all 13 episodes of it, and the quality is not very good in terms of their captures of it, but you definitely get the idea. And that series was so incredibly well done. And it's kind of funny because the late 70s and early 80s, there was kind of a small resurgence in radio drama. Because that's when we got Hitchhikers.
Oh,
right.
Which was wonderful.
And we got a Lord of the Rings. We got, and again, we got Bradbury 13. There were a whole spate of these really incredible radio dramas that were being done between about 1978 and about 1985 or 86. And Bradbury 13 was one of them, and it won a Peabody Award. So, of course, it helps whenever your writer is Ray Bradbury.
Right.
But the series was actually produced at Brigham Young University, and just incredible, amazing. It's just like one of those things that shows you how powerful audio is. It's just people talking, and some great sound effects and some great music, but it just shows you how powerful the human voice is and how important sound is in basically giving you an emotional connection to things. And of course, too, is, Bradbury is one of those formative authors for me. Particularly when you look in a lot of my early work in particular, it's very Bradbury. And so, anyway, so that's sort of been a big model for us. And of course, obviously, too, I grew up adoring the Twilight Zone, and I still do. And so the Uncharted Regions is definitely sort of a fusion between Bradbury 13 and the Twilight Zone.
So is this a direction in terms of genres that you really want to, and I'm not talking the radio genre, but like a sci-fi / horror mystery kind of thing. This is really the area you want to just go, hog wild in, right?
It's my wheelhouse. I whenever I think about it, it's kind of funny because I've made a career out of writing fantasy, for computer games, and that's sort of what I tend to be best known for. Is Betrayal at Krondor is still the thing that I'm best known for, which was a fantasy RPG based on a series of fantasy novels by Raymond E. Feist. But the thing that I've always basically felt like is I'm basically a horror writer. And so it's just kind of weird because I've never actually gotten the opportunity to write for a horror game. Though there's so many different shadings of what a horror game is. You know, you've got Silent Hill and Resident Evil, and then you've got these games which is basically I'm just running around like Walking Dead, where I've got a machine gun and I'm running through the environment. And there's some other kind of cool Lovecraftian kind of games that are out there. And so there's so many different corners of, well, what do you say is sort of genuinely horror to me? But I always have looked at Ray Bradbury's, he's always sat in kind of an odd place. You know, they talk about him being a science fiction writer, largely, of course, of the Martian Chronicles, and hugely formative for me. But that's definitely something that I think is a place that I love, because it is horror that is kind of informed by a certain way of looking at life and looking at the world, and I think that I don't know, that's just sort of where my soul is sort of where things come together. So extremely long answer to a short question.
No problem. So you've also you mentioned your video game, and you're retooling that. Is that right? To re-release.
So we have. What I did a few months earlier this year, earlier this year, is they released a new game tool called Amazon Lumberyard, and I was looking at it and said, you know, this is a really kind of cool tool, and I could come up with sort of a new idea for it, but I thought, well, you know, it'd be more interesting to actually go in and use something existing that I've made before, so I don't have to design an entire world and game just to build these tools. I want to actually just basically rebuild something I built before, but see how easy it is to use with these tools.
Right.
And so I've been kind of experimenting with that. So that project is Betrayal at Crondor Remastered. And so that's been something I've been kind of doing in the background while doing some other stuff. I'm really kind of grateful and excited that people have responded well to that, and a lot of people really want, of course, a lot of people want me to basically drop everything and do that full time. The only problem is since it is a licensed property, I couldn't actually release a official new version because that belongs to somebody else, you know, in terms of the license belongs to somebody else, and there's a game company that's involved, and there's all these reasons why I can't do a full-fledged, you know, release the whole thing to the public kind of thing. But what I can do
just call it something different.
Yeah.
What?
Just call it something different.
Well, what I'm doing is that I'm basically using the tool that Amazon provides to recreate a lot of the systems that are underneath. And of course, whenever I get done, what I can do is I can get rid of all of the content that I'm kind of using as sort of experimental, you know, for experimental purposes, get rid of all of that and create a new game with that engine.
Uh-huh.
But you know, that's going to be a little way down the road because, you know, ultimately I can't do the whole thing by myself. I am going to need people who are 3D modelers, because I can do some 3D modeling, but I am dog slow, and it'll take me 3 months to do a real 3D artist could do in a week.
Mm-hmm. So you mean you want to release this before the sun burns out, then?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know, I want to release, actually have some hope of releasing this at some point, or some version of what I'm doing. But anyway, so that's something I'm kind of doing off to the side. It's mainly, right now, it's sort of an educational project for myself. It's mostly about sort of learning this stuff. But I've shared videos of what I've done with it so far. And so if you just go to YouTube and look up Betrayal at Crondor Remastered, you can find the videos that I've done with it so far.
Yeah, that's cool.
But
learning
you know,
is always good.
What?
Learning is always good.
Learning is always good, and so for me, of course, it's playing, you know, because the beautiful thing about it is okay, it's just a different way to create something cool. And of course, obviously, the big thing is that Jane and I would really want to do is the feature-length film that we started writing follow-up to The Case of Evil. It's not a sequel to The Case of Evil. It's not really even in the same universe necessarily, but it's definitely the same feel and flavor. And so it would be another retro film. It would be black and white, probably, though we might talk about doing it in Chrotachrome or whatever, but not quite Kodachrome, but Colorama or something like that. But that early sort of 50s, 60s kind of look to it, because the time period.
I love that color palette, though.
Yeah. There was one film, and I leaned over to you and I said, I think they're kind of going for Kodachrome. But
you did bring that up, yeah.
They have too much blue in it.
They turned the blue down just a little bit, and the reds need to definitely come up some.
I was a fan of Kodachrome. I didn't like Ektachrome.
But
although I would think, maybe Ektachrome is a little bit better than Kodachrome.
Oh my God, you film geeks, you
just blue and greens,
But that film, like I say, the main thing we're looking at it is a gigantic leap, because The Case of Evil, took us between shooting time and post-production, and the huge thing that it took for us to get the soundtrack done. It took us about a month and a half of time to get the whole thing done, and but it was only 3 days of shooting time. But the rest of it was post-production, and also just trying to coordinate the music for Case, because again we had people in separate countries that were putting the soundtrack together.
So you didn't want to call it the Case of Evil, or it was going to be something in that vein. You might be the Valise of Malevolence or something.
No, it's different characters and different role, but it probably would be
Samsonite.
It would basically be set not terribly. It would start probably just post World War II, and then there would be more more into the 50s, but sort of a setup, and then it's earlier, and then a few years down the road in the 50s. So it would still be the black and white era. I kind of envision black and white film with posters and such in that unique color palette of that time.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that whenever we shorthanded everything, we always said The Case of Evil was a Universal film, Universal monster film.
Right.
And this new one would be more along the lines of the movie that comes closest to it would be Rebecca. And so a very different kind of approach. It's probably as much a suspense as it is horror.
But more humor, there'd be maybe a little more of the Thin Man type repartee and all.
Yeah, that's one of the big differences is the dialogue for the new movie is very also one of the issues of casting for this thing is it has that machine gun dialogue that you kind of expect from the 50s. Is that just wonderful kind of stuff? If you think about My Girl Friday, some of the dialogue that's in that, but again, it's a little bit of a romance. It's a little bit of sort of a suspense. It's got horror, and so it sits in kind of an odd place. I said, if you imagine that Hitchcock had been brought back in to revive the Universal horror line about the mid-50s.
Yeah. Well, keep us in the loop on this. We certainly are interested in
well, we definitely
talking to you about that.
We would definitely come to you and kind of talk to you more about it right now. Just the hard part is it's going to be an expensive movie to make.
Oh yeah,
And also too is
and you got to find the money too.
Well, it's the money, and also too is just it's a much more ambitious thing because we're shooting. We shot for 3 days for Case of Evil for an 11-minute film, and with this we're trying to hit between 90 and 120 minutes for Madalena, and so
multiple sets,
multiple options, and trying to simulate some of New Mexico, or not New Mexico, but simulate Mexico. Very ambitious film.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, in any case, I mean,
it would be fun to film in Cuba because we could probably get the old cars and the right look for old Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, the economy might actually be
Well,
very
you
good
never
for it
know.
too.
By the time you're ready to shoot, Cuba will be fully open.
That's
very
true.
possible.
That's true.
So, wow, you guys have got a lot on your plate already as it is. So for anybody who wants to learn more about what the two of you are working on, or if they want to learn about past projects that the two of you have worked on, is there a website presence, any kind of social media thing that those people can go to?
Yes, well, thank you, sir. Yes, there is. If they want to kind of keep up, we have a website at swordsandscircuitry.com. The website's kind of outdated right now, but at least the main front page, we have news about stuff that's going on. This will, I know, so that's for just the main web. If Jen and I are both on Facebook, so Jana Hallford and Neal Hallford, we have our own pages. We have a Swords and Circuitry Studios page on Facebook. The Case of Evil has its own Facebook page, and Uncharted Regions has its own page set up, even though we don't really have a lot to report. But in the next few weeks, as we begin to cast for episodes, we'll start posting who's coming on, and we'll be talking more about that. And so hopefully in the next few months, and also Swords and Circuitry is also got on Twitter, so at Swords Circuitry. And so that's all of our sort of social media link stuff.
Wow. So you guys have about as many social media things as we do.
I think they win. I think they win.
And it's been fun too, because people are sending their auditions to me, and it's been interesting to see. A real benefit of knowing people in the film community is that, we do have a talent pool, and things that dreamed of doing before that involve people that can sing in some episodes and things like that. We have that because we have access to that because of different people we've met and referrals we can get.
We got a knockout audition of somebody singing here the other day, and I'm really, I'm now trying to say, okay, somebody's got to come and top this now, but that's going to be pretty hard because there was a pretty amazing audition that we got of someone singing for the lead part in the first episode, which is called Someday Over You.
And a nice thing about it too is we can tell people, there's a limited number of roles in this first production, but I'm treating the auditions, and I'm letting people know this, is a talent pool for future shows too. So there's some people that are very talented, but if they're not the right fit for this one, we could probably find something for them in one of the later productions. So I'm hoping that some people won't mind if we come back to them later and say, now we've got something they want you to do. So
if people want to audition for Uncharted Regions, they should reach out to either Jana and I on our social media, and we will arrange with them about how we get sides to them for how they could audition for the show.
Excellent. I was about to ask that.
Happy to do that. And a great thing is that if people are out of the area, they can still send their audio audition in. So that helps.
And we can't forget Con of Wrath.
Oh gosh,
yeah.
Where are you at with that?
We got to talk about that really quickly. Where is Con of Wrath at this present time?
Okay, where Con of Wrath is at right now is we are currently, Larry and I are scheduled to fly to Houston at the end of October for theoretically our last Texas shoot, and I think we've got a handful of interviews to be coming up between now and in November. But Larry has basically said we are wrapping this up by the end of the year, handing it off to our editor by January, and hopefully the Con of Wrath will finally be in people's hands by sometime, I'm hoping, midsummer next year.
Yay, that's a cool deal.
Next year is important because it will be the 30th anniversary of the convention.
Oh, cool.
Well then, yes, it has to come out by
you
then.
have to do that, yeah.
And Keith and I, we've seen a number of the rough footage, compliments of Larry, and all I can say is I cannot wait to see this finished product.
Well, I have joked, but I may make good on it. I have joked about staging a editing intervention if Larry needs a little inspiration to get it done.
Yeah.
No one in the world is more anxious for this project to be finished than Jana or Larry's wife, Janet.
Oh,
I
sure.
believe it.
Well, thank you, Neal and Jana, for being with us a second time.
Yes,
this was
thank you.
Wonderful conversation to try to catch up with you and let everybody know what you are doing currently. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Thank you.
Oh, it was our pleasure.
Yeah, baby. They're like two gay geeks. They're together, you know. They're two gay guys and they're geeks. Is that okay? Yeah, baby. They're like two...
Oops. I messed that up.
Oh dear, more silliness.
As always, here are... I can't stop giggling now. Here are a few selected birthdays for September 19th through September 25th. September 19th, Mr. Adam West. Batman. Also on September 19th, David McCallum, Jeremy Irons, and Brian Epstein.
Which was interesting since we just watched the original movie 8 Days a Week.
Yeah, the new Ron Howard film.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also September 19th, Cass Elliot, also known as Mama Cass.
One of the best
Taken from
voices
us
ever.
Too early. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
way too early. September 20th, Joel Harper, who is a Facebook friend
Yes,
of
he
ours,
is.
or TG Geeks anyway, and Mr. Rob Palmer.
Another Facebook friend. And which episode was that?
He was, I don't remember. My God, it was probably take 50 to 50. Oh gosh, I don't know.
I'd have to look it
It
up.
was
in last year.
It was in December. Yes, it was in December because Rob is the director of.
Oh, good heavens.
Oh, good heavens is right.
And that's not the name of the film.
I Am Alone.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
I Am Alone, the film. Rob Palmer. Sorry about that, Rob. My brain just shut down. September 20th, also George R.R. Martin.
Oh, really?
And Sophia Loren. Yes.
Interesting that George Martin and Brian Epstein, two people that were very...
George R.R. Martin.
Oh, George R.R. Martin. That one.
That Martin.
That Martin.
George
The one
Martin.
who will not finish his books.
Yeah, and kills everybody. September 21st, Bill Murray, Stephen King, Chuck Jones, Henry Gibson. That's Henry Gibson, not Henrik Ibsen.
Right.
Yes, the Henry Gibson from
Laugh-In.
And Herbert George Wells, also known as H.G. Wells. Yes, and this is the male H.G. Wells.
Yeah, not that female person that we saw in Warehouse 13.
Yeah, September 13th, 13th, yeah, September 13th. September 22nd, Tom Felton, also known as Draco Malfoy, Billy Piper, and Joan Jett. Interesting that Joan Jett's birthday is this week. I had a coworker that just said they went to a Joan Jett concert this last week.
Well, there it is.
And September 23rd, Josh Tarnowski, a Facebook friend, and Anthony Mackie.
Of the Marvel movies.
Yes.
He's Falcon.
September 24th, Mr. Jim Henson of Muppets fame.
Yes.
September 25th, Christopher Reeve and Mark Hamill, Michael Douglas, and Dmitry Shostakovich. And that is it for the birthdays this time.
Once they were a podcast. Hello and welcome to Casual Mode, the podcast for geeks of all trades and masters of none. Then, they went dormant. But then, he returned. But he didn't return alone. Chibi, let's do this. Casual Mode, now the channel for geeks of all trades and masters of none. This is Pokemon Fan Theories. This is Fun 5e Builds, another casual vlog. Tabletop RPGs, Pokemon Talk, and a whole bunch of other random What can I say? I'm ever so slightly lazy. Search Casual Mode on YouTube, Casual Mode Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and Shadowbird712 on Twitter. Until next time, casual fanatics. Keep it casual, y'all.
Go give a listen to our friend Jeremy over at Casual Mode Podcast. And now, It's time for listener feedback.
Feedback. That's the next thing. I got to figure out a way to be able to, through the
Do
little
some
toys
reverb,
we've got,
yeah.
that you can just do a live reverb. That'd be cool. So,
Someday.
yeah.
Someday.
Yeah.
Someday, my...
Yes?
Yeah, whatever. Will come.
So-
My toys.
My toys, yes. We want bigger, new toys. That's what we do. We collect toys.
Yes.
So, now, of course, we didn't have any feedback on our last episode because that was pretty much our big coverage wrap-up of Horrible Imaginings Film Festival. So we said that we would save that for this episode, and now it's this episode. So, going back to TG Geeks episode 94.
94. That was forever ago.
It really feels like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This is actually... this is really weird. This is sort of a meta kind of thing. This comes from our good friend, the twins, Lookie. And they left this comment with episode 94, but it's actually in regards to episode 93. Go figure. But they quote us, and where we say in episode 93 we didn't have any interviews, we just had stories, so we were just being our silly selves. And they simply responded with, "That works too."
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yes.
And of course, then we also mentioned how at 50 years ago, Star Trek premiered, and I think it was you who said, I remembered it. I think you said you used to watch it on a black and white television set.
I used
And
to watch it in the living room because they wouldn't let me watch it on the color TV.
oh dear,
In the den.
oh, deprived. And of course, the twins respond with, "Entertaining effort from Keith, the co-host on Star Trek, 1966 to 1969, theme song, and nice anecdotes from both. Since you both love the stories, perhaps there could be a fun basis for a special episode, like 5 favorite episode picks from both co-hosts, with discussion of each. Or you could review the films, as there are several of them. Discussion of just films could also carry an episode."
Was that Sasha or Dagmar?
I have no idea.
It was a combination of both.
Yes, it was Dasha.
Yes.
Yes,
Sashmar.
Yes, Sashmar. Yes, the third twin.
Or Dasha, yes.
The third twin that we never talk about.
Shagmar.
Shagmar. Oh dear.
Oh dear. No, that's the fourth twin that we don't talk
We definitely
about.
don't talk about Shagmar.
Although Austin Powers might.
Yes. Hey, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Oh dear, we just so went off the rails.
Sorry.
And we never recovered.
And we never recovered.
No.
Exactly.
And the sad part is that the twins aren't done yet here with this. They're not finished with the feedback because they then said at the 15-second mark, we mentioned how we were coming up on 100 episodes, and they came back and maybe it was Shagmar who said, "A milestone celebration podcast will be a nice spot."
Yeah.
Maybe that's why Shagmar never appears.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, a milestone celebration podcast could be a nice spot for a Star Trek 1966 through 1969 retrospective, actually.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that's
certainly
actually
a thought,
not a
yeah.
bad idea.
We might even see if we could get several people that we know talking about
Had
Star
all chime
Trek.
in. Yeah, well, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
So, moving right along, we got a message from the good friend of our show, Scott Linder, and yes,
Is that the sound you were wanting, Scott?
yeah, because
I had to find it.
because there was I
Got
guess
lost in iTunes
yeah,
somewhere.
in episode 94, you made the comment about how it was your job to derail me,
Yep.
and you, in fact, your quote was, "It's my job, right, Scott?"
Exactly.
And of course, his response is, "Hell yes, it is." Love this in the previous episode. You guys just talking and Keith's lightheartedness make these extremely fun for me to listen to.
Yay.
Love it.
Yay, thank you.
Well, we are happy about that.
Yeah.
And we got a nice little thank you from good friend, not just of the show, but personal friend, Gordon Street. He wrote thanks for the birthday wishes. And we got something from your sister.
Yeah.
And because we also gave her a birthday shout out, she responded right after Gordon with, "I second that comment," referring to the birthday.
Yeah.
And the Stranger Things shout out. Can't wait to hear about your horrible happenings week.
Yeah, that's my sister channeling my grandmother. she always had this habit of changing the names of things. Like there was a restaurant in Muskogee called Hamlin's. It was a Mexican restaurant, and my grandmother always referred to it as Hamilton. So the family refers to it as Hamilton's now. And Sonic was Sauna. There was Milgram's grocery store, which was Mildred's, and then there was Brahms, which was Branham's, and
oh dear,
good Lord, everything. It was just like, gee, many Christmas. And when she was in the nursing home, and it was the last, her last year, I suppose, she had her hosta nurse, not hospice.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Oh bless her.
Exactly. That's for you, Lynn.
Yes.
And I have to say, I can't believe my sister's even listening to the podcast.
Hey now. But she likes some of the geeky stuff too. She's enjoying. I mean, as she said in the last episode, or the last time we talked about this, I mean, she's a huge fan of Stranger Things, and it gave her something to kind of look forward to until the next series of Bravo reality shows come on. So, go Lynn.
Yeah.
And then to wrap up the feedback, we just got a little brief message from Tatiana Patton, and I believe this is because we also gave her a birthday shout out, and she simply writes, "Thank you," with a nice little heart after it in the message. So that was awfully nice of you, Tatiana. We adore you. We love you. Thank you for all that you've done, especially the Russian little names you gave us last week. We appreciate that greatly.
Yes, and we love your husband too.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so that's it for our comments. We want to thank everybody, our listeners, our readers. You are very important to us, and we want to know what you think of the show, what you think of our articles that we run on the website, everything that we do. We want to know, is it something you like? Is it something you dislike? We're open to, constructive criticism.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're going to criticize, please be nice. We have feelings too. You can look us up on our Facebook page or as TG Squared Studios, and you can comment on our episodes and articles we publish. You can also comment on our YouTube episodes or at tggeeks.com, and you could receive a shout-out on a future episode. You can also call our listener feedback line, and we will play your comment on air.
We have done
as we have done several times. 469-TG-GEEKS, that is 469-844-3357.
This is Kenny Rotter from the Dumbbells and Dragons podcast, where nerd and fitness collide. Join me and a guest every Wednesday for a new episode where we talk about all things nerdy, pop culture, and health and fitness. Follow me on all social media at Dumbbells Dragon, or just search Dumbbells and Dragons. Work out, nerd out.
And that was his birthday was yesterday.
It was yesterday,
yeah.
as of this recording,
yeah. Which was Saturday, since we released this on Monday. And I just kind of fouled that up, didn't I? I have this thing about keeping everything in order, but messes up my OCD. Like the Facebook meme the other day that had one of the circles that was out of alignment.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
It was
for the OCD
and
people.
there was no way I could fix it.
No, I took a look at it and I went, it's number
I have to
2.
scroll past this. It's burned in my brain forever now.
Well, I kind of got all weird and I kept pressing my finger against my own computer monitor, which is not touch sensitive. So like even if I did it on my iPad, I'm not going to move that red dot back, so it's perfectly aligned in the square. But
yeah.
Anyway. So as some people may have heard, we have finally arrived.
We've arrived.
We now have movie press credentials. We've been actually able to attend some press screenings. That's the good news. The bad news.
The two that we've been to so far.
The two that we've been to so far have not been all. Well, you went to
I've
one,
been to one, yeah.
And I went to the second one because you were out of town. So far, wow, talk about strikeouts. Yeah, very disappointing. And the first one we're going to talk about, Robinson Crusoe crashes into the wildlife.
Yeah.
Now this movie, from what I could tell, this is a joint production from both France and Belgium, although oddly enough, the original voice work was done by Germans.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really weird leap. And the movie came out like in 2015 and finally got American distribution via Lionsgate.
Wow, interesting.
This year. And Wow. Okay. Now we've got the review for this on our website at tggeeks.com, and we'll have the link for the review in our show notes. I've pretty much, well, all I have to do is just go to my review in order to really get a sense of what I thought about it. But basically, yeah, this is supposed to be Robinson Crusoe, done animated a la DreamWorks, not quite Pixar quality, although there were a few moments that I thought looked kind of good.
Yeah.
There was some good animation scenes here and there, but they were mostly at action sequences. The rest of the time, I thought the movie just was really subpar, one that I wasn't very happy about.
Yeah.
The voice acting I didn't think was all that strong, and except for the person who did the voice of Crusoe himself. Clouseau, yeah, he was French. He was the only one that I really liked.
Wow, it's only done $6 million.
Oh dear. Yeah, I didn't think it was going to be all that great. I'm right now looking up the actor who played Crusoe. His name was Yuri Lowenthal. Now that's the American release, and he does have a great resume with mostly like computer games. He's mostly a voice actor. He has done a few live acting roles. I think they're like bit parts. He reminded me a lot of Jamie Bell.
Yeah, it was.
Anybody who is not quite sure who Jamie Bell is, think the Adventures of Tintin that Spielberg and Peter Jackson put out, and he was also in the Fantastic Four horrible reboot that came out last summer.
Yeah. So, but it was. There were some interesting moments, but not enough to. I mean, it was great for the kids because it was a lot of slapstick. But
Tons of slapstick.
But then there was still some very slow parts and some stuff that kids would not understand.
No,
so
and the movie,
it was a very disjointed.
It's very disjointed. The movie has got
uneven.
The movie has just a very, very bizarre opening to it. The threat to this has been transferred. It's even though Robinson Crusoe himself is a human. He's befriended by all these animals, and the threat comes from animals.
Yeah, it was an interesting film, and there were some good parts. I mean, the animation was great, and you know some of the jokes were okay. And
there were moments where I smiled.
Yeah, but it was very uneven. It was just uneven.
Yeah. I was disappointed with it. I had higher hopes for it. So if anybody wants to know what we think, just go to our website at tggeeks.com. And as I said, the review for Wildlife will be in the show notes for this episode.
Yep.
Now, moving on, this is the one movie that I saw. Blair Witch. Oh, boy. I don't really quite know where to begin on this.
Glad I didn't see it based on what you've told me
Oh,
about it.
my word. Let me hit some of the low points on this one, and there were a lot. The worst is the camera work. This thing is vomit cam everywhere.
Wow.
Now I will admit, I was sick that day. I was just very under the weather, and I was borderline on canceling. But I had already given the RSVP, which was due the day before, so I felt it would have been just really unprofessional for me to not be there. So I showed up anyway, and vomit cam or this kind of found footage. Let me be honest, and this is a found footage film, just like the original Blair Witch Project was, and I think the Blair Witch Project is arguably the one that really made found footage a really popular subgenre.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part. I mean
there were some other films that explored a little bit of it, but were not the entire thing.
Oh, no. They kind of used a little bit here and there, but that it wasn't the main focus. The entire film wasn't based on the found footage or used the concept of found footage in it, like this one does. And this is actually the third of the Blair Witch films. The second one was, I'm trying to remember the name of that title now, Book of Shadows.
Yeah.
And that was not found footage. And oddly enough, Blair Witch, the original Blair Witch was a huge cult hit. A number of our friends who saw it didn't care for it all that much, but it was a huge cult hit, and I think because of the use of found footage, it added a new level of terror, which I can understand. I can get that. Then, of course, Book of Shadows came out, and that was done very standard-wise. It was not all that hot. And then finally, this one comes out. It came out last Friday, which would have been September 16th. And again, this is a documentary-style film. And the camera work is horrible in this. I mean, it just moves rapidly and surprisingly and shockingly just all over the place, to the point where I literally, and maybe this is just me being old, that I just don't have the stamina anymore, but I found myself continually looking down at like fixed points on the floor. The theater that I saw it at had these little LEDs on the floor that serve as running lights, so that people could see if they needed to walk out of the theater in the dark. And I kept looking at those in order to get my bearings back, because there were moments where I literally thought I was just going to hurl. Yeah. And that does not make for a good experience. In fact, if anything, that's taking me out of the film.
Right.
And that wasn't there wasn't much fun. The other thing that really bothered me is the editing. The premise of this film is that someone found all this footage and is now put it all together to release as a documentary to serve as a warning for everybody to not go into these woods where the Blair Witch supposedly lives and haunts and kills people. Well, all I have to say is that if someone decided to edit that all together, then they would have been just the worst editor on the planet, because there was just static in places, a lot of dead, black screen in places. I mean, it was just in order to suspend disbelief, that was the worst editing job I'd ever seen. It was horrible, and that became very distracting. There were, the old cliche jump out of the shadows kind of thing to try to make people jump. No one in the theater screamed out or anything like that. Instead, there were a couple people who laughed, and not laughed with it, but laughed at it.
Wow.
Because they thought it was a bad gag. And the tie-in to the original film is just weak. Just weak. I never got any sense, except for the fact that one of our lead characters, his name, I believe his name is John. He's desperately trying to find his older sister Heather, who was the lead character from the first film. Oh, James, that's his name, James, and his best friend Lisa. She's the one filming the documentary, and they decided that James has found this. He's found the original footage, supposedly, that was left by his sister. Already this starts to stretch a lot of credibility in terms of the continuity built in this franchise. So he decides to go, and that's it.
I think it's pretty apparent that it's kind of a dog, because it came in second this week.
But?
To Sully, which released last week.
Oh.
Sully did $22 million this weekend. Blair Witch, $9 million.
Wow, yeah.
The other two that opened this weekend were Bridget Jones' Baby, $8 million, and Snowden, $8 million. Suicide Squad has dropped to number 7.
It's still in the top 10.
Yeah.
Wow.
And guess where Star Trek Beyond is?
Did it drop out of the top 10?
It is number 21.
Wow!
The total dollars, $157 million.
Oh,
they haven't even made their budget.
They didn't make their money back
in 9 weeks.
Oh, that's tragic.
9 weeks.
Absolutely tragic. A lot of tragic. Well, be that as it may, that makes for a bad run.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Blair Witch. Let's just say that the only redeeming thing in my mind was the acting. The last 30 minutes of this film are amazing. I will say that, even though there's still a lot of that rapid camera work that's going on, it is in the performance of the actors that's what saves this movie. It's not the things you see, but it's the things our characters see that really delivered the chills.
Yeah.
At no point did this film ever scare me. There were some moody moments, creepy moments, but it never scared me. But what impressed me was the acting. To be able to present yourself with that level of in-your-gut terror, you have to really tap into something very, very deep in order to present that level of fear. And there are times where the cameras, and the premise again is there's more than one camera being used, so they could turn on each other's faces at any given time to be able to record each other's reactions. And what you saw and what you heard felt absolutely genuine. And I don't know if that was a trick done by the director or not, but I thought the acting was incredible. That's the great big takeaway from this film. The acting is amazing, especially by the two leads played by that are James and Lisa. I thought they were unbelievable. Callie Hernandez as Lisa and James McEwen as James. They were incredible. That's the only reason to even possibly see this film.
Yep. So we had a couple of palate cleansers. Last night we watched Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah, and then today,
and I'm going to talk about this again on my other show, Fusion Patrol, but my co-host there, Eugene, suggested watching this amazing film from 2007 called The Man from Earth. It is a story that was written by Jerome Bixby, who also wrote the Star Trek episode Requiem for Methuselah.
It was a great film. Oh, my Lord.
Wow.
Very, very smart, very thought-provoking.
This is the most brilliant film I've seen in a long time.
It's a true thoughtful science
Very
fiction.
thoughtful.
Yeah.
It does not rely on big budget effects. In fact, there aren't any. There's not. I don't think there's anything. The only post that might be done.
Effect.
No, there's not a single effect in this film.
Other than maybe they shot at night and tried to think it was day.
Or day and make you think it's night. Whatever,
Exactly.
like that. But it's just a group of people in a cabin. And that's all I'm going to say. People, if you have not seen this film, holy cow, watch it.
Yep.
I was totally blown away by it. It is rare for me to finish watching a film and just be completely, utterly enthralled and totally in love with it. I am in love with this movie. It is brilliant
Star
work.
Trek alumni.
Several. I mean, there's a lot of sci-fi horror alumni that are in this film.
Yep.
In fact, I think, except for maybe just the extras that show up, everybody has got some kind of genre cred to that's part of this. It's a brilliant, beautiful movie. I'm in love with it, absolutely in love with it, and thank you, Eugene, for suggesting that we watch it.
Yeah, and that's it for our
second segment.
Second segment. We have a calendar. Always, as we have always follow-up items. Sorry. We have a calendar. I use that to look up the birthdays this week. If you have a birthday or a celebrity birthday or a film festival or a convention, let us know. We'll put it on the calendar. And as you know by now, we've become huge supporters of independent creators, not just film, but any kind of creative outlet of an independent nature. You know, we're always pushing something, but we're pretty passionate about it. We have really come to be huge supporters of independent creators because there is a wealth of talent out there. It's just the fact that, people can't get the funding for the wonderful things that they're making because they don't know the people, the right people.
And for what it's worth, we've actually had a couple of people really recently, reach out to us now, and we are exploring those things that they
independent creators reached out to us and said, "Hey, can you take a look at my stuff?"
Absolutely.
Whatever. And a lot of times they'll do crowdfunding. And if you run across an independent creator or some kind of project that's doing crowdfunding, please take a look at it and give it a shot. Maybe as little as $5. Every penny helps.
Yes.
Support independent creators. Phoenix Comic-Con has started to announce guests for FanFest, and that's October 22nd, 23rd, downtown Phoenix Convention Center. Check out phoenixcomiccon.com for additional information. And next weekend, as of this recording, September 23rd and 24th, is Keen Halloween at the Convention Center. Check out keenhalloween.com.
Have to give a shout out to the Doctor Who Talking Who on Twitter. They publish the Doctor Who Fancast Guide, which republishes a number of our stories throughout the week. And if you wish to read the Fancast Guide, all you have to do is go to Doctor Who Talking Who on Twitter. They are at Talking Who. And good friend of the show, Brian Weber. He is on Twitter, known as Social Justice Scald, and he puts out the Arkle Times Post-Dispatch News, which also republishes our stories. If you want to find that, just go to Twitter and look for @Arkle. And Brian, of course, is also on Tumblr, and he has the Incorrect Star Trek Voyager quotes, which is always good for a nice chuckle and a little bit of education to see the things that were not actually said on the show.
Yeah. Also, check out the Lookie Show, the twins, as we fondly refer to them, or Sasha and Dagmar. They are wonderful. Check out Lookie Show on Twitter. It's @Lookie Show, and their YouTube channel is Lookie Show. They do movie reviews and little snacks, they say, that are film snacks. They're just little short interludes about a film. Check them out. They're really good reviews and kind of fun and over the top.
Yes. And we have to give a special shout out to the Facebook group, The Gay Geek, because they are the greatest group on Facebook. They're my favorite group on Facebook. I love them for all the content and all the wonderful people that are there. And it just so happens that their high moderator, Jeremiah Reeves, has allowed for us to share our episodes on that group. So, special shout out to The Gay Geek. Special shout out to Jeremiah Reeves for allowing us to share episodes there. And you can see that group by going to facebook.com/groups/thegaygeek.
Thank you, Jeremiah. We want to remind you to occasionally click on our Amazon ads that we run at the bottom of each episode or each article and on the widgets on the side. Don't have to buy anything. Just click on the ads. Lets Amazon know that we're getting traffic. And if you do want to buy something, use one of our search ads. We get a little bit of a kickback. And lastly, please, please, please rate us on iTunes.
Yes, because that helps raise our rating.
Yes. Up next time, an interview with Mr. Eric Elick.
Yes.
And the reason we know that is because we've already
had it.
We've already done the interview. And we're going to record that episode in just a few minutes. So check it out. Okay, that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We're going to have several links to the articles that we talked about and things that we've done in this episode. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or the website, tggeeks.com, or leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357 from TG Squared Studios. I'm Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. I bid you peace.
Cheers.